few different things that I started on just so I can test out different stuff. I want to test out different methods and different stabilization. That light's not working too good. I guess I better plug in my car, start the thing, and then try using my light. Oh, wait, no, I can use this one. We'll blind those people back. Alright, so the first one is... Alright, this is a harness that I made yesterday because I was thinking, I need to make a harness, but it needs to be based on my disabilities. So it's got a rod for lumbar support, support all the way up my back actually, and then of course the rings for attaching things to, and the parts that'll tuck up underneath my man parts. The idea is basically to make something that'll mechanically make it easier for me to walk, given my range of motion and what tires me out and what doesn't. Now, if I could find a way to convert only when I need it to, a forward sliding motion with my foot into an upward lift, I think can be done. That way I could go upstairs a lot easier and also step downstairs possibly easier that way. And that's one of the things about working on the stilts. Now, making it into something that's cool, that can be done pretty easily to start with. I mean, all the blow-up stuff that I got, it's easy to blow up. This right here, flat. Alright, we got it flat. We go. We blow it out. It's expanded all the way around. And that is kind of in the shape of a stingray's tail, kind of in the shape of a dinosaur's tail. I've got some tape around the plastic, kind of in the shape of where ribs would be, and that holds it into a rounder shape though. That's why it wouldn't go completely flat for me. Kind of the intent and purpose is to make it so it doesn't have to be blown up. It's gonna pop out on its own, but I don't have enough tape to make that a extreme possibility or an extreme probability yet. That would take some doing, and I'm just trying to test out and show the concepts. If you make something that doesn't want to be folded up, it wants to be folded out, and then you fold it up and you stow it, you pull it out later, depending on what you make it out of, it'll either stay in place or it'll want to move. Alright, so that tail piece, I've got a design for some vertebrae for the tail, made out of some wire. So I'm going to test it out and see how well it works. But this will go over basically where the tail would go on this. I suppose I could unplug this now that it's completely out of battery. And we'll take a look at this here. It doesn't, of course, this is just the body. This is where the mouth would be on a manta ray. And then, of course, there's the body of it is round, and it's got kind of a curve that goes into a tail, and that's, I've got a piece that looks like a dog collar, and it'll go to the base of this and make it so that it does what it needs to as far as that goes. One thing I am going to do, I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to cut it into the shape of the plastic that I'm going to be using, which is, it's 25 feet by 10 feet, but I'm going to cut off 5 feet at the end of each one that I have, because I'm going to use each of those for a backpack cot tent, super lightweight. I got a bunch of different stuff in here. Some of it I pulled out of garbage cans. Some of it people just gave me. Said, oh, well, this will keep you dry. So on and so forth. So I do have a lot of stuff in here that I didn't have to buy. And a lot of stuff in here that I did. A lot of stuff that I've had for a while. that just never gets used. That's just because of the nature of not being able to dig anything out when I need it. Now that I've got a storage facility, I can store some of my things, and I can pull out some of my projects. This is basically my version of Legos, because I want to be able to test actual concepts. And Legos do a really good job of that. I'm not going to claim that they don't. But a lot of what ancient man worked with on up until the 18th century and even on into the 20th century, a lot of people lived with having to make their own rope. So they knew exactly where to go to get local materials to make their own rope. Had to make their own houses, had to build it out of literally dirt in places. So you can build a house out of dirt, you can build a house out of grass. There's multiple ways to do each of those. This right here, with it being able to fold out this far, it kind of shows the concept a little bit. Once you get to see the very end of it, and hopefully a G.I. Joe will fit in here the right size. This right here will be where the legs will come out, and that hopefully, depending on how I do it all, I'm hoping that it'll all come together and be able to look like a dinosaur. I've got the stuff to cover it once it's up and working. Once I know that it's functional, then I'll be able to put a nice covering over it. But for the time being, it'll be something like this, except it won't be this flimsy plastic that was actually garbage. It came off of, well, here's some more of it. It's super flimsy. But, you know, it's pretty resistant to getting holes poked in it, too. Now, the type of wire that I'm using, you guys got to see the first one that I made. This one I made yesterday, and it was going to be the same thing, and it was going to be covered, and it kind of does the same thing. But I don't know. The way that I was imagining it forming and conforming to where I need it to, this doesn't quite fit the bill. What I need to be able to have is a complete back support, which means that I'm going to be using not the 12 gauge, but the 9 gauge wire here. And for a back support, it'll be this right here, quadded up, of 4 of them, basically braided into one another and lashed together so that they're not going to separate from one another. And that way my back, I will not have to support anything at all with my back. One thing that I can do, if I put something behind me and between my shoulders or behind my shoulders, I can do a bench press basically. So I might be able to utilize that range of motion there anyway, where I can actually do some heavy pushing in that range of motion. I can't do any heavy lifting at all. As far as pushing above my head, that impacts my back too much. Pushing off with my legs, that impacts my legs too much. So I'm hoping between the dynamics that I learned from making bows and getting to assemble some bows that I got in parts and make them work, as well as some of the stuff that I was able to learn doing animatronics as a kid. I went to a store and there was a mechanical, you know what? I should just make one of those mechanical claws to show you. They made one for Terminator and they made one for Halloween. It was a skeletal hand, and it's got these things that go to your fingers, and when you squeeze them with your fingers, it's got the plastic finger at the end. It's either supposed to look like a piece of a metal hand like the Terminator, or it's supposed to look like a skeletal hand, but when you squeeze down here, it works the hand up here, is the strings that go in between it. Kind of like you guys have seen little things where you squeeze a thing with your palm and it's got the shark thing on it from SeaWorld or whatever, and you squeeze it and it closes the mouth, and then you let go and it opens it. Or one of those grabbers for picking up garbage. You squeeze the thing and it pinches the thing together and picks up the garbage, and you let go of it and it lets it go. Basically what you're doing is you're using the stuff like this that's ultra strength. You're using and doubling up and making sure that it's got the highest strength that you can get out of it, so that it doesn't have a whole lot of bend or flex to it. And then the other stuff that you use is stuff that's got a lot of flex to it, and that's what you use as your tendons. And then any pulleys or mechanisms that you may have, you might as well consider the muscles. And even though they'll be powered by me, I'm using a different range of motion and trying to test out different range of motion settings. We might be able to get some people who can't walk to be able to walk again. I know I got a guy named Wraith. His real name is Tory Wentworth, and he's got multiple sclerosis, and he's been working on an idea for a suit with a bunch of servos that'll make it so that people with MS or people with cerebral palsy will be able to walk. Once they've lost the ability, they'll still be able to get mobile. And that'll also help to assist, as he was explaining it to me, a lot of problems like bed sores. So I've got the 9 gauge that'll get doubled up for structural stability. This is what I'll use to simulate bone. And then the 12 gauge here, I have, it's actually really strong itself. So I might use that for a lot of smaller connections and stuff. But, I mean, this stuff would work great. It's basically ribbing. And I've got a really cool design for that too. That's based off of the extending it forward motion. What it'll do is it'll basically mechanically pull a lever, and pulling that lever will pop everything out. And I'll show you kind of what I mean on this right here. I was showing you that it'll open and close. Well, this one right here actually does the same thing. Now, I had to make some, changes to it just because of the materials that I'm utilizing. And, you can see that it opens and closes. It's not like some magic thing that's, attached to a statue of Zeus and it's going to magically save your children like Jesus and anything creepy like that. It just opens and closes. It's a set of wings, but it's not just a set of wings. The way these are made is actually made to basically create a pocket inside of there. Now, this wouldn't actually be the wings itself. This would be, of course, the body of a manta ray, but you can see it kind of has the look of a bat. So far, I'll hang it upside down. There's your bat. Isn't that creepy? Anyway, it's just this piece right here is just made to show you the concept of how it works. Now, this will be a 2-stage thing. I'm going to have some fishing line 25-pound test that goes to the center, basically the keel. Because this is all meant to basically test out the ideas that I'm wanting to use this other stuff to make. Now, there's some stuff like this right here is see-through, and that's great. I love being able to see through every part of whatever I'm in. Now, obviously, there's a big open spot here and a big open spot here, but there's a reason for that. This is a small scale. I'm just wanting to show the basics and simplicity of it. And then there's a lot of other stuff that's going to go into it. One of the things that I did actually ultimately settle upon after testing out the concept, is just a center ring on the front and the back. And that'll actually allow me to move everything as I need it to, because those are round bars. If they were square bars, it might make a little bit of impact and make it complicated, but doesn't need to be. There's also the fact that I have the floatables, I guess you'd call them, and they're going to be used for beefing up areas where there's going to be water access so that it'll maintain itself above the water line. Like I said, I want the concept to be able to fly at some point, but not the thing that I'm making now. This will basically just be a really, really complex and cool all-terrain Halloween costume. Hopefully I'll be able to do all the fancy artistic crap eventually later on down the road, but for the time being, I'm just wanting to make something that I can wear it. I can make it so that all the costume stuff that's around the outside of it, like this just be a costume part of it, you know? It's something that's, well, like Tony Stark with his arc reactor, except it's not an arc reactor, it's just your range of motion. If all you can do is scoot your feet back and forth like that, there's a way to make it so that you can actually walk up a set of stairs anyway. If all you have is a range of motion in your arms, then we can make it so that range of motion in your arms can be used for that. When I say we, I mainly mean me, because me and Wraith do it completely differently. He wants to do it with servos and electronics, and he's trying to figure out a way to make it so that as you move, the movement of your body creates the electricity that runs all the servos. And we've all seen slide lifts where you got a really, really heavy weight, and it's on a very tiny incline, if any at all. You just get a running start and push into it, and all of that weight, it's got something attached to the other end because you basically slammed it to the end of the rope, even though it didn't take but maybe 5 or 10 pounds of weight to start getting it going. The fact is, when it gets to the end of the line and it snags on that line, it lifts something immediately, and you can launch stuff like a catapult doing that. I don't recommend doing that. Part of the reason is because, well, one of the methods is to just drape it over the top of the pole and put a bunch of slack into it. And when the slack comes out of it, let's say you have a 2,000-pound rock. If it's on a straightaway and it's slick, you can actually move a 2,000-pound rock forward. You're not going to be able to lift it. Yeah, that's not going to happen, but you'll be able to move it forward. And if you can get it moving forward easily with like 5 to 10 pounds of pressure, and you initiate a full-on push on it, and you get yourself about, 20 to 30 pounds of pressure on it, and it gets to the end of that rope, it's going to impart a lot of its weight into that rope once it gets to the end of it, because it's already in motion, it's already got the mass. It's already got the inertia, and that mass and that inertia are definitely going to bounce it back at you, so you might want to move out of the way. But, that's dependent on if it goes over an incline at that point, because if it goes over an incline, it's not going to come back at you, but you got to worry about the end of that rope or any point in the middle of that rope. Any number of horrible, horrible body mangling and death-inducing things could potentially happen when you mess with things like that. So you want to make sure that you do it on a small level. You're not making any of the catapult springs or anything like that with the intention of having a catapult. You're making them on a smaller level with the intention of using your range of motion, your own body weight, to assist you in your momentum and in your movement. And I think that there's a way to do it, and I think that there's a way to dial it in, and I think there's a way to do it without electricity. What Wraith hit upon is absolutely beautiful and perfect for the modern age. I think it can be done with sticks and stones. Now this right here obviously is not 100% as it should be. It's not all done and fine and dandy and pretty yet. I want to have it so that it's got an attachment around the outside of it as well, so it's double layered, so I can show the concept of that. And then I got some straws, and what I'm wanting to do is actually I could probably do that to one of the straws right now. I have a few of them that are set up. I've also got plastics like this that are quasi see-through. It's just garbage, but it's what I use for making my models with. It's cheap and easy. Is there one already chopped up in the bottom? There is, right here. Yeah. Let's take... hell, that one will work. What the concept is we're going to take this piece of plastic and we're going to pinch it at the end, and we're going to crease it top and bottom just on the end. And before we seal it up, we'll pinch it the same way across the center, just on the center part. That'll make sure that it stays open and remains open. What we're going to do is pinch it back here, and we're going to heat it up, and then we're going to use these things right here, have a flat part. And that flat part on it, I can show it to you. That flat part will work perfectly with the heat to make sure that this thing seals up nicely. If I can remember where I put my lighter. This sucks. I'm trying to pass the time and not be a nuisance. I'm trying to stay out of people's way and out of their hair. I'm also trying to... Well, I can't follow the laws because I don't have a place. Without a place, a lot of the stuff that you guys take for granted that is perfectly legal, it's somehow magically illegal when you're homeless. So keep that in mind. All right. I suppose I could just put a piece of tape over the end of it. That'd probably work. Problem is, I just had a lighter, and I know that I was going to use it, and I don't know where I put it. This is sucking badly. I do need to start charging my electronics, though. They're starting to get low. I did get to let somebody use my car charger earlier today, which is nice. All right, so this is what I decided to do. Now, it's not completely finished. I tested out with another piece earlier, but these right here, these are hair things. And I got a way to seal them up so that they won't come off, which is really cool. Let's see, we'll get this one attached on there too. That's actually what I was working on before I started the video. I'll get this one on there. Alright, there we go. Anyway, this will be a smaller version of that other thing, but instead of having a big complicated rig, like this one right here is less complicated than the one I ended up using to make that. And I don't mean rig like a druggie. I mean a rig that everything attaches to. This, basically I looked at it and I overcomplicated it in my head to where, you know, basically I've got to have 10,000 things and 10,000 ropes all running through, and it just a whole bunch of twisties. And there's a much less complicated way to do it, I'm certain. I mean, with the wires that I have, I could probably use the center spoke hubs for a regular bicycle and just use those. I mean, it's got a hole drilled through it. All I'd need to do is put a wire through it and then bend it over and crimp it. I mean, it'd be fine. Anyway, this right here, if you can imagine this with a tail on it, it's starting to look a little bit like a manta ray, and the tail kind of looks like it could work a little for a manta ray, and it could work a little bit for a little velociraptor. And I do have the stuff to make those now. Just not a place to do it. Now, my original idea way back in the day was a lot different, but along similar ideas and similar lines. Anyway, let's see if this it kind of looked like that, but of course that looks like one of the aliens from, you remember the movie Alien, the very first one with Ripley or Sigourney Weaver? Yeah, the face sucker. All right, not funny. Anyway, I like the manta. I like them more than stingrays, just because the manta are supposedly majestic and peaceful. One of the things with making something like this, is that the ropes that are used to close and open, and basically the sinew or the tendons, I guess, that would be the ropes. The stuff that makes everything fold out and fold back in would be the ropes, and those are also used to help stretch the frame. Now, I don't have that in this real well. I mean, I do have the fishing line that's taped into the edge here, and that's something you don't see. That actually, because of that and the tape, it adds a lot more structural stability to it than is necessarily easy to use when it comes to having to fold it up and put it back down. So I don't know, I just thought of something that I could do that might change that. All right, let me see, does that pull up? Yeah. It's got a lot of weight to it, so I figured oh, that's what it was doing. It was getting stuck on that. Yeah. All right, let's move that back up. Now it shouldn't get stuck on that. And that's part of the frame thing that I was designing. That was a part of it. So I still have it there because I still have a use for it. But it's not a part of it yet. Anyway, that's what it looks like on the inside and on the outside when it's quasi opened up. Kind of the idea behind it is that if I've got a leg right here and a leg right here, and this is folded up like this, it's basically resting against my legs, and that kind of looks like what do they call them? Pultlets? Is that right? It's it's a battle dress. It's a battle skirt, basically. Type of armor that goes on the sides, though, as opposed to a full skirt. But it wouldn't actually be armor. It's basically just a stuff sack. My whole idea with the dinosaur is that all of its skin is basically the outside of a stuff sack is going to have... Let me see if I can gain easy access to it. I got it a while ago. Here it is. Some artificial alligator leather right here. I got 3 feet by 15 feet, I think is what I have. So Basically, if you got a stuff stack that is on your right hand side and you've got one on the left hand side, you can stuff them with whatever you want. Like on the left hand side, you could stuff one of these or one of these. The extension for it is actually what would go on the sides though, because this, like I said, would be on my legs. There's also the feet that are going to go with it. I designed them based on... People don't make cool stuff like I want, all right? They got great ideas, wonderful ideas, but I'm crazy. I come up with ideas that people wouldn't think are related, and then they go, oh my God, that's genius. Well, of course it's genius. Most people don't put 2 and 2 together because sometimes it's a red 2 and sometimes it's a blue 2. If you're playing Uno and you're colorblind, you are handicapped. A lot of times people look at the 2 plus 2 and they go, well, that's a red 2 and a blue 2. So what do I do? Well, 2 and a 2 is what? It's 4. It's 4. So a lot of times you guys see something that is actually in reality very, very much related, but you don't make the connection, like a windmill and a boat, a sailboat especially, and a power boat. Well, how could you more efficiently utilize the sails? Well, first of all, you can make those sails so that they work like a windmill. But then you look at a helicopter or a gyrocopter, what do? Once you get that, you tilt the windmill, well, then it's starting to generate lift. And if you're forcing it to spin using the wind and it's generating lift, then you're making yourself a vehicle that's even lighter. Let's say you're out on the water. Well, you've also got the ability, since you've got that thing rotating up there, why not attach it to a shaft, which it's already attached to, isn't it? It's attached to the mast. So you make that mast so that it rotates, or you can make it so that the mast stays in place and it's got a drive shaft in the center of it, like the way a rear end on a vehicle is. And it goes down into your vessel and attaches to a shaft that goes out the back end. Now, I personally would do this with rope, not a steel shaft, but whatever. You know, it's a matter of what's easier to fix when you're out on the open ocean. If you're able to cut some plastic bottles, you can make yourself some pretty decent rope with plastic bottles, and you're more likely to find those floating than a chunk of steel. But it all comes down to trying to make the world a better place, and it comes down to trying to have some fun with it, and it also comes down to trying to find my damn lighter. And this is gonna drive me to drinking. I'm just kidding, I quit drinking for a reason. This is what I've been using for the one that I just started making, but you know, I'm gonna use all of my little prototypes. That's what these are, just proofs of concept. This right here, I'm hoping when it's all said and done, this part right here should be on either side of my head. And these things right here that are, when they're all the way down, should be just right at my knee or a little bit below it. And where it'll spin off from is a little bit higher than, but it's between my navel and my man parts is where the ring will go. And there'll also be one on the back. And the one that's on the back, instead of having a big special harness like I originally made up yesterday, like this part was going to go across where my back is, and this was going to create the arch support, and these were going to basically be hooked up underneath so that I could have a leg come out here and a leg come out here, and then the spot in the middle where my man parts aren't going to get squished. Something you kind of got to worry about when you're a guy. If you look at the 7th Cavalry, That was Custer's Last Stand and all that. If you look at their cavalry saddles, you'll notice that they have about a 6 to 8 inch, uh, about a 4 inch gap in them, and it's about 16 to 18 inches long. It's pretty long in some of those saddles. Some of them it's only about 10 to 11 inches, but it depends on if it's the 7th Cavalry or not. The 7th Cavalry seems to me had the long ones. It had a big long opening because those guys thought they had some real long whatevers, I suppose. But that's why cavalry saddles are made with that slit in the middle, especially the United States ones, so you don't squish your boys. Ah, found my lighter. Anyway, I should have got myself a G.I. Joe, but I didn't want to buy anything that wasn't going to be actually useful, and a little G.I. Joe, even a cheap one, I was looking for a mannequin of some sort that I could use. Without there being a Walmart here, I can't get one of the little cheap $4.99 mannequins that they have there. The little short ones that are made out of wood, and I think it's sketch art that makes them, but I'm not for certain. I also drilled some holes in a piece of wood, and I put some of those barrettes in there. I'm just testing different ways of holding things and different ways of moving things, and this right here also has the possibility of, with tension on it, this could be basically a guide to help the cordage to move properly. That's one of the things about building a prototype, is you want to put as much into it as possible, but you also want to make it super simple and then expand from there. Like, I want to be able to have a multi-point control system, and I'd want that on an airplane too, by the way. If I know that it's going to take 10 pounds of pressure to turn the rudder, for example. Now let's say I have 20 lines going to it on each side. That's probably quite a bit too many. But I've got the 50-pound test line, okay? If I've got 10 of those attached on either side, I've got quite a bit before they're going to break. And if something does break, there's 9 more that are still going to hold. And it's small. Instead of having a big thick cable like this, take it apart into the 7 or 8 individual cables that it is to start off with, and you can use those, except that they're now twisted and warped and they'll stretch more than you want them to. But gotta learn somewhere. Anyway, these also work really well for lockdowns, and then of course, because there's space in between there's all sorts of stuff that you can have it hold. Heck, I could have it hold this, or have it hold out the side, I guess, like that, or tilt it up. Plenty of things it can be tied to or secured to. Also, if this stuff is scraped off, you can use it for some electrical projects, which is always cool. Well, maybe not. I recommend, if you are not 18 years of age, that you do not even think about suggesting doing any of this stuff, because it might get you thrown in prison, some of it. I give this information to you for informational purposes, not so you can go blow up a garage or blow up a house or blame me for the shit you did to your sister last year. That's horse manure. All right, that's kind of a rude tangent to go off on, isn't it? All right. Well, maybe I can have it hold my rings for me. Yup. Oh, wow. That works out really well. Now I gotta find that piece of a straw that I was gonna use. Ain't that what I was originally gonna pull out the lighter for? But then I got buried in all of this shit. Lucky for me, I got plenty of straws, right? I've been trying not to waste any gas today. I filled it up last night and I'm already down to half a tank again though, because it was fucking cold. I don't know where I'm gonna sleep tonight. I'm kind of lucky that I've been on rotation in the places where I know people are getting fucked with by the police. Even though I sleep there too, I can't sleep very much. Lewis got me used to being up at fucking 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'm usually up by 4:30 if he doesn't come get me up. Cheryl knows he's a bad alcoholic, and she says that it's from his head trauma, which it probably is. I'm sure drinking on top of the head trauma doesn't help it though. And whenever I've seen him fall down, he's been severely drunk. She said he only had one beer. Well, no, I was there. I saw more than one beer go into him the first time. Second time, yeah, maybe he only had one beer, but he smelled really fucking drunk. It'll take about 10 minutes for my car to warm up enough that I can turn on my damn heater, and I need to get a parts box for these. I got a box in here I can use, so I'll just do it that way. I guess I'll get out another straw since I lost that first one. I'll use a smaller straw. Ah, fuck it. I'll use a big one. It'll work. I use bigger straws than the smaller straws because the smaller straws will actually slide in and out of the bigger ones. And I've got some stuff on my channel where I did some animatronics with straws as well, and string, and tape, of course. Alright, we'll just snip the tip. Alright. When you cut it with scissors, it automatically crimps the ends anyway. But we're making it more pronounced, is what we're doing. And then we get these ready, and they're cold. We got our lighter. If I didn't just lose it again, I'm betting I did. Oh, there it is, right in my pocket where it should be. Light up the ends of the plastic, and then smash it in between the flat part of this, and it'll crimp it and cool it instantly. We'll do that to the other side. Oh, not quite. I didn't do it fast enough, and I didn't melt it quite enough. Alright, now it'll work. Alright. Now we've got a sealed container. And we can use that as a side piece on as a pontoon or a flotation of some sort. And, obviously it's supposed to simulate something that'll have about equal buoyancy. I do want to use number one recycled plastics because, well, honestly, they last for fucking ever. They're liquid resistant, they're gas resistant, they're rot resistant, mold resistant. Even slightly heat resistant. Now, one of the things that I was talking about with this, with having the trash plastic that's see-through, the plastic that I got is actually a painter's tarp, so you can't see through it like you can see through this. And although this isn't stretched real great, and I haven't tried heat treating it, which I'm about to do, I'm going to set it up on my dash. I can't see out of my vehicle because of the fog, so I have to do it this way. I got stuff that I can wipe it down with, but that just ends up smearing whatever's on there that's nasty, and I gotta spend a lot of time wiping it off. It's probably nicotine from smoking in here like an idiot. Anyway, that's why I had that stretched across the bars that are put on here. Those extensions that are sticking way too far out. But for what I'm doing, there's a reason for having them extended like that. I don't anticipate having to use that particular region for anything, but I do anticipate the possibility of it. And I'll use a little piece of tape so that doesn't shrink up too much on me. I have to cut it off when I'm done because I want that part open. But that's one of the things about people being able to visualize something. It's a lot easier for them to visualize it if they can see it. That's been one of the most difficult things with my evidence. A lot of people saying, yeah, I'll help, Sean, I totally want to help. Yeah, Sean, I'm totally down with this fight. I'm totally down. But then they're not actually down because they never actually look at evidence. They want to tell me all their conspiracy theories or tell me about all their problems. And although I don't mind helping them with their problems, I do have to work on mine, and that's what these people offered to help with, was my problems. So at some point we need to stop focusing on theirs and actually sit down and expend some time working on mine. If you got some reason that you can't, well, that sucks that you said that you would help me and you can't. The least you can do is speak up about not being able to. A lot of people promised to help me, and then they told me that people who were promising to help me that don't know me were saying horrible shit and doing horrible shit. These web sleuth groups, there's a lot of people that offered to help me, but these web sleuth groups went out and specifically and selectively targeted the people who were helping me. There's people like Mandy Hughes. She wanted to keep everything private, and I would have loved to do that. But she would have had to come forward with me in court like she promised to. Otherwise, I have to go public with that information. Otherwise, the cops are going to pretend that I wasn't trying, and I have to be able to prove that they were wrong, that they lied, that they misled the situation. The fact that I had to record conversations with people who promised to help me and post them on the internet, that's not what I should have had to do. That should not have become a necessity. But it did. Anyway, I gotta find something I can stuff in here that puff up one part of it for me. So I'm gonna use some of this Kleenex here, and I use it for checking my oil, so hopefully I don't light my ass on fire. I don't think it should get that hot though. Well, we'll see if stuffing this in there. We'll see if we can even get it stuffed in there. It might be too big. Yeah, looks like it's too big. I should have tried that before I go around this way. I'll stuff it in right here. This is where I want to make sure that it doesn't if it does do the heat treating thing and suck the plastic up, I don't want it to suck it up too much in the back. I'll have to do too much to get that readjusted later on. Anyway, it looks completely silly, I get it. So, if you think it looks silly too, cool. There's a whole goal and process in mind with this, and so that's hopefully in the next couple of minutes it'll be hot enough that I'll be able to utilize it the way that I want it to. And anyway, it all starts off with making a functional model. Just test out the concept, make sure that it works first. Before you go investing into a big project, you can go investing into the materials if you know the materials are going to work. But as far as the mechanical portion of it goes, it's going to get expensive if you don't test it out first and make sure that it functions. There's a lot of concepts that I have that absolutely work, and I've had to tinker with them a lot to make sure that it works. There's also stuff that I hit upon completely by accident, like the idea of a steam pulse jet. The longer it takes to get actual help in person turning in my predators, the more abuse I have to take. And a lot of people who claim that they were my friends still don't understand that. They don't understand that the longer it takes them to speak up about what they know, the more hell I gotta take, and the more likely it is that more evidence is gonna get lost or stolen in the months or years that it takes them to finally come through. I understand that they have families of their own, and that's why it's important to get on it as soon as possible. The sooner I can get an actual advocate who's actually gonna work with people, the better. But they actually have to work with people, and that includes me. Anyway, the painter's plastic that I have is not very see-through. I made that out of this material right here. This is, I made that out of a trash bag. I'm sorry. This is what I was originally going to make it out of. It's a little bit thicker, but it's still see-through. This one has a lot of condensation on it because it's a raincoat. It's even got some mold in it. But you can see it's translucent, it's quasi-see-through, and if you only got one or two layers, you can start to tell more details. And when it's only one layer, let's see if we can get it only one layer thick. Well, this is only 2 layers thick, and you can tell my finger. You can see my face in it if it's up close. So anybody looking in here is probably like, oh my god, that guy's fucking nuts. I also have a shower curtain that's 4 foot by 6 foot, or 4.5 foot by 6.5 foot. And it's really see-through, and it's thicker, and it's what I would use on a full-size one. Making one of these out of bigger wires, making it so that it's wide enough to go from, I might even make it go 1 inch or 2 below my knee, because I think I can actually get away with it as far as the way I designed my boots. But I also designed everything so that it'll all hook in together. You want it to be able to support your weight, and also if you've got joint problems, you want to be able to have it so that it takes the pressure off of your joints, but still allows you the range of motion, because staying limber will actually help prevent you from getting all well, all stressed up and stuck, frozen, rusted. Your parts don't want to move no more because you haven't been using them. For a lot of my stuff, it's pressure sensitive. As long as I'm not putting pressure on it, it don't hurt. Anyway, I use this light for in case of emergencies. I showed you a little bit of what I'm working with, and it's not anything great, magic, or spectacular, but it's something to do with my mind, because you know what? I gotta do something to make the world a better place. I can't just sit complacent and do fucking nothing, waiting on somebody else to fucking help. The problem is that I have to. The term mentally ill just has to be there to fuck everything up, don't it? I'm trying to use my heater as a heat gun to heat shrink some plastic. We'll see if it works. I hope it does. But I'm prepared for it not to. I was thinking about pulling out too, but there's people back there. Yeah, it's not doing much. Actually, maybe it is. It does look like it's getting a little tighter. I mean, it's slow, but it seems to be doing something. Anyway, it's all about tinkering. The thing about having a little bit of a bow in it to make it open and close easier, that's something I'd actually anticipated, and the wire that I have is already bent that way. So there's also ways to make it so that it'll extend. You can use, basically pulling on a string will make something that's the length of one piece into something that's the length of two or three pretty easily. And as long as I'm, using floats on it, that's just basically holding the floats together. It doesn't have to be incredibly load bearing. And as far as if the seas get a little bit too rocky for me, it's pontoon rods. I can pull that stuff in. That's kind of the concept. Anything that might get torn off in bad weather, you can suck in close to the boat, if need be, if it gets that bad. I also designed a special ballasting system so that it will hopefully help the self-right itself and use the waves. I call it Thor's hammer mechanism. It's basically a pendulum hammer. If you've got a hammer that's hanging from a pendulum, or a weight that's hanging from a pendulum, figure out how to make it so that no matter which direction it turns or goes in, it's creating power for you. Now let's say that thing is 200 pounds. As it's imparting that 200 pounds of weight swinging on that pendulum, you can have it so that it's attached to a small swing arm for whatever power propulsion system you want it attached to. Or you can put a large swing arm on it, depending on which one you think is most efficient. You can also put a long arm on it as your fulcrum. And that long arm, you can have an attachment to it that slides up and down that arm so that you can adjust whether you're getting more speed or more torque, basically, out of what you're doing. I made it, or designed it, sorry, so that it'll basically just rest in a ship, and if that ship hits any sort of waves or movement, it'll be able to use that to propel it forward. We got a lot of inventions today that are coming out that when you see them, you go, hey, why didn't they think of putting the nozzle from a Sea-Doo industrial size on them big ships? I mean, heck, somebody had the great idea of putting them on them PBRs, Patrol River boats, all the way back in Vietnam. I think they ought to put those on the bottom of our battleships. Imagine refitting a World War II battleship that's obsolete. Even if you can make it turn on a dime, it's still obsolete. But imagine having the USS Missouri or the USS Iowa able to spin around, get in and out of port, do everything that it needs to without the assistance of a tug. That's not one of my inventions. It's not even something that I came up with. The ones that they had in Vietnam were made so that you could literally reverse the thrust just by pulling a lever. That easy. You go from darting forward at 38 miles an hour to all of a sudden you've got that much thrust being imparted the opposite direction. It can stop in its own length. That's pretty impressive. Anyway, there's a lot of different dynamics that I'm working with, and stuff that I'm messing around with and playing with, and well, it's not looking too terrible. Not perfect by any means, but I don't expect it to be. It's just to test out the idea. I mean, ideally, this whole thing would be closed up. And if you've got one of these, and you know, the piece of straw that I melted together on the other ends, being able to use that as a piece of buoyancy. There's also the fact that if these two, let's say these rods are on a ring, they've got a slight crook in them, so that they'll push against each other almost. And then we've got one of these the entire length of this one, and one of them the entire length of this one. When they push together, they'll squeeze together and create a water-resistant bond. Not waterproof, but water-resistant. There's also the fact that those will be on the inside. It'll help to lift everything up so that it stays out of the water. And being water resistant, it'll help keep the water out. And because they're floaties, they'll want to stay on the top of the water, and it's not the only buoyancy. The air that's within the thing is buoyancy in and of itself. This is just to basically raise it up a few inches for just in case. I like the idea of redundancy. I also like differential in my redundancy. Like, this whole thing is meant to be a floatable, but if I've got a floatable opening that'll also maintain its floatability, then something like this, it's actually going to have some weight and mass to it. And if it gets completely saturated, it's something that with my body weight and the weight of the metal, it could sink. But with the floaties, not going to happen. And I've got better floaties than the floaties too. They're called recycled #1 plastic bottles. Just the bottle itself. Doesn't have to be molded or transformed into anything else. Just as the bottle itself, it is buoyant. I guess I've been talking for a while. This video is over an hour long, so I'm going to sign off and say good to be rid of you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper and no victim left behind.